Okay, so today I'm going to go over some basics on evaluating functions with the graphing calculator. One thing you'll notice is that we are using the TI-84 Plus, and this operating system allows us to actually do math types, so it's a little bit different. So I'm going to show you two different ways to do a couple things here. And so we're going to use the homework 3 function notation and evaluating functions, and we are going to do the C, the values for everyone in the C row for their homework. So we're going to start off with number 1. We're given our function negative 3x minus 2, and we want to find C, which is f of negative 2. And the first thing that I'm going to tell you is you can do everything in your calculator at once. It will do the order of operations for you if you properly type in the expression. Another thing I need to tell you is that you need to make sure that you do not confuse the negative and the minus button. The negative button right here is by the decimal button. For example, we want a negative 3 times x minus 2. That's our function. So I'm not going to use the minus button. I'm going to use the negative button here. So negative 3. And instead of an x, I want to plug in this negative 2. And every time I do that, I use parentheses to replace my value. You saw the parentheses right there. And then it's minus 2, and that is the subtraction button in minus 2. So you'll see that my function for number 1 looks almost exactly as it appears on the paper. It's just instead of an x, I have this negative 2. Everything's in the same order in the calculator, and I could do it all at once. And I press enter, and it does the order of operations. My answer is 4. Number 2, we have a fraction, and there are 2 different ways to do a fraction. We're going to do the old way. The old method for TI-83 calculators works for both types of calculators, so we're going to do that one first. So we have g of x equals 1/2 x plus 5. So I'm going to use the division bar and use parentheses to show, okay, this is my fraction 1/2, and I am going to multiply it by 0. Again, whenever I plug in a value, I just use parentheses. You don't have to and when you have positive numbers, but it is very nice to do that. And then I'm going to add 5. And again, that's going to give me 5. Now, if you have a TI-84 and you have a new operating system, you could use math type. So if you go to the alpha button and then the y equals button, this is your numerator denominator. And when you press enter, you actually get the fraction. So you can actually use your down arrow and over arrow. Hey, look, we have 1/2. 0, and then add 5, and we get our 5 back. Okay, number 3, we have h of x equals x squared minus 5x plus 7. So we have an exponent here, and we want to evaluate this function for h of negative 8. So again, when you replace the negative values in for x, you want to use parentheses. So we have negative 8 squared. I will tell you, if you do not use parentheses here, you will get this wrong. And I will show you that in a minute. So minus 5 times negative 8 plus 7. Notice I'm using the negative button and not the subtraction button. And I press enter, I get 111. Watch what I get when I don't put the parentheses. So this is not the proper way. This is the wrong way to do it right now. I don't have parentheses, and I'm not going to get the right answer. I'm going to get negative 17. That is not the right answer because it's not properly doing this part here correctly. So you do need to put parentheses when you plug in negative values there. Okay, let's look at number 4. So we have a fraction on number 4, f of x equals 1 minus 3/4 x. So I'm going to type it exactly how I see that. I'm going to do the old school way of doing a fraction. So in parentheses, I have 3/4. I use the division bar. And I'm multiplying 4 here. So, and then I just use parentheses. Remember, this is multiplication here. And press enter, I get negative 2. Again, with math type, you type in 1 minus alpha y equals will bring up your numerator denominator. You can go down, get out of that fraction. And then I'm going to plug in the 4 here. And so still gives me a negative 2, but 2 different ways to write 3/4 there. All right, number 5. Number 5, we have g of x equals negative x squared plus 10x minus 3. Notice the negative is already there, so that needs to go first. Then we're going to plug in the -3 in for x. So I want to leave this negative sign out there because that is in my function. Plus 10, and then parentheses -3. Remember, that's multiplication there. And then -3 again. And so we get -42. All right, number 6, we see absolute value signs. The calculator will do absolute value signs for us. It's the same keystrokes, but it looks a little different in the TI-83 calculator. But to get the absolute value bars, you need to go to Math. It's right below the green alpha button. So if you go to Math, if you scroll over to Number, you'll see ABS, abs. It's not talking about your stomach. That's absolute value. So if I press Enter, now if you have the newer calculator, you'll see the absolute value bars. If you have the TI-83, you'll see the actual ABS and then in parentheses. It's the same thing, it just looks differently on your screen. And then we're going to type in 1 minus 7. Again, I didn't type in the minus sign. Again, I use parentheses to replace my values. And if you just go out, or if you close it, if you're on the TI-83, close the parentheses there, and then we get 62. And then our last function has another fraction here, so f of x equals 9/5 times x plus 32. So again, we have our fraction. This is one way to do it. And then I'm going to multiply that. I'm going to plug in the 25 plus 32. Oopsies. So I can just go back and notice I don't have to hit clear on the whole thing like you guys like to do sometimes. So that is 77. Again, if you have a newer calculator, you can actually do the stacked fraction. So again, that's alpha y equals, and there's your fraction type. So 9/5. Again, we use our parentheses when we plug in our variables, plus 32, and you should get the same answer. So you need to go back and rewind. Maybe there are some things that you missed and that you need to catch up on, but that is how you can use the calculator to correctly evaluate your expressions or functions.